on Mompreneur Mindset today. We're super excited to be here today, diving into two ideologies on how to live your life in a peaceful, harmonious way in this chaotic hustle culture world that we live in. So we're going to talk about work-life balance, and we're going to talk about a less commented on ideology, work-life integration. So Jana, you're a mom just like me. We're hustling. We're trying to be on the field trips. We're working multiple jobs in your case, right? You have your engineering job, and then you also have your Kid Strong back office stuff. So, for you, when you think about work-life balance, what defines that for you?
So as a mom today, if you asked me this 5 years ago, it'd probably be something different. But as a mom today, it's having happiness at the end of the day and just holistically feeling that in our family. So down to the dogs in my house. So like everything in our home, I want to feel comfortable and successful. And we've talked about this many different times for many years now, is success is measured differently by everyone. Yeah. So my version of success may be a little bit different than yours, or maybe different than someone else's. It doesn't always need a dollar sign or another comma in that answer. And so for me, the success is being able to make as many things that I can, be intentional with my time. And that's pretty much a main factor of how I'm able to accomplish all of that, and not letting anyone down. But also I have to know like when to say no. So I may not be able to volunteer for a specific event or something out of school, but if there's something else that I don't want to miss for my kids, or of course, if I have a deadline for work or something during the work hours, I'm going to choose that to be the priority for the day.
So it's this feeling that we're all trying to achieve, right? Where there's this equilibrium between what you're doing personally, what you're doing professionally, where you're juggling responsibilities of the time you spend with your family versus your availability to your team at work. Oh, and by the way, also, you're making sure that you have time for hobbies and self-care. It sounds pretty good, right? Or kind of insane, For me, what I found as the world started screaming self-care and work-life balance is I felt more like a failure. I found myself saying, what? How? I'm not there. I'm going to spend more hours at work than I spend with my kids. And that's when I was introduced to the concept of work-life integration. So where both have really, really important factors. With work-life integration, it's kind of working from the concept that instead of balancing it all, and having this like distinctive separation of this is my time for work and this is my time for personal, there's a sense of seamless blending of personal and professional life. Because it was that rigid separation for me that had me constantly feeling burnt out. When I was at home and my phone would ring, if you're a manager of people, right? Or if you work with people, period, you're a leader, right? Leadership is not from a title. You can be I have some friends who run the office at like construction companies and stuff, and nobody would say they're a manager, they're a leader, they're working the desk, they're handling some HR. I will tell you right now, they are leading a lot of people every day. And therefore, during their off time, just like during my off time as a business owner, off time, I'm going to be getting a phone call, right, from an employee. So here I am at Sweet Eat Farms, at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, and I'm getting a phone call because somebody needs to call out. They're sick. They have the flu. And what was happening in my gut is I felt a little failure. I was like, oh, stress. I'm supposed to be on family time right now, but I have to switch gears to work. And they're supposed to be so separated if I'm handling work-life balance and I'm setting firm boundaries. And so work-life integration allowed me to have a flow through where instead of being stressed if I was at work and I got a call that I needed to go pick up my kid an hour early because they were sick or something was happening, with work-life integration, I'm able to say, well, it's about production, not time. And I'm not going to feel bad or feel like I'm failing. I'm going to go get my kid and handle that. And then I'm going to prioritize my time to make sure I get done what needs to be done. And on the inverse, when I'm with my kids, right? I'm back at the farm with my kids and I get that phone call. I'm not going to get that spike of anxiety when I see the phone ring from a coworker or employee, because it's okay to answer a phone call and help somebody you care about and work with, and then smoothly flow right back into what you were doing. So, one of the things we want to talk to you guys about today, though, and we're going to actually, if you guys subscribe to the channel, the initial email we send you will include a worksheet on this. We're going to talk about what elements you do need to have in order to have work-life balance, and then what elements you would need to have in order to have work-life integration. And here's the kicker. You don't have to pick one, right? For me, I carry elements from both. You do too, right? So the first thing, and Jana, you are a master at this. In order to have work-life balance, there are 5 key factors. The first is time management, effectively managing your time to meet both the needs of work and parenting in this balanced world that we're creating here of separation. What are some tips that you would give on how you are accomplishing that? Or maybe you're not, right? Like, how's it going?
Each day is a little different. I will say I've taught myself basically is I don't get caught up in each day if I feel like a failure. Because let's be honest, there are some nights where I go to bed and I'm like, I did not win that day. I was not successful, or something or someone in my life would just, it did not get accomplished, or it was not to the best of my ability that I thought. So it's like I tell my young children every day, like, tomorrow's a new day, like try again. And it's kind of like been my own affirmation. I'm my own like hype girl and cheerleader. And of course we're each other's cheerleader for sure. But it's like I'm my own hype girl every day. And I'm like, I can do something better tomorrow, or I can do something different because today was just complete trash. Yeah. So it's been interesting. I will say I am a type of personality that I do appreciate structure. I do like it. It feels more needed and natural, especially in the chaos of 3 young children, multiple businesses, just, having home responsibilities and all of the above. But I've had to take a step back and learn to let it be more fluid. Truly. And that is not something I've been good at. I feel like I'm definitely getting better. It does not give me anxiety now when I know that I'm going on spring break for my kids. And so I'm off from my day job, but I'm actually not off from Kids Strong because we need 75 people to get paid. They deserve to be paid on time. Right. But it's like, I planned ahead for that. So I was ready. I had blocked my time. So I gave myself 2 days to run payroll. I blocked my time of how much I could do for each center. And it worked. It truly worked beautifully. Our staff did great. We were able to get everyone, everything was right on payroll. So that was a miracle in itself. So we did good. And so I think it's truly just being intentional. Also, another big thing for me that's helped is everyone has to be on the same page in your life. So basically think of everyone closest to you, whether that's yourself and your plant, or your dogs, or your aunt and uncle, your grandparents, your children, your spouse, whoever may not necessarily live with you, but whoever you interact with more than anyone else in this world. You've got to be on the same page with them. And for me, it looks a little different because how I'm on the same page with one of my children is different than another child, different than my husband, different than yours and I's schedule. Yep. It's just different, but it means so much to me, each individual person, that when that is like flowing correctly and just as smooth as possible, nothing's perfect, but nothing's rainbows and unicorns as much as I want to believe it. Yep. But when that's flowing smoothly, everything else just seems to fall into place. And so, you and I, we do daily check-ins, we're driving in the car. Let's have a 5-minute call. Let's talk on the way to record a podcast, it kind of goes wherever we can fit it in. And that works for us. We know that's what works for us. For my husband and I, we do I call it a 5-minute roundtable. It means really nothing. It just sounds kind of cool, professional, like I'm having a meeting. But it's the most informal thing in the world. It can be like while trying to keep my children alive outside because obviously they're crazy. It can be anything, but it's a 5-minute roundtable and we try to do it daily. It does not always happen. Again, life's not perfect, but it's just catching up on everything. It's, hey, we have this going on, this event, this celebration, this challenge. And it can be anything from something that's needed at the house, in business, in his job, to vent, family. There's no boundaries on it. It's messy, but in a good way. Again, there's no organization. It's informal, but it is intentional to have that. No matter how well, I'm great at putting something on someone's calendar. I am a great scheduler. I can hit send, and my husband specifically, can accept, and he can miss it by a mile. He can, not show up or not think about it. And it's just, his brain isn't wired that way. It's taken many discussions, as everyone can imagine, to get on the same page. And so here we are. And again, it's definitely not perfect, and it's not always pretty, but like that 5-minute, it's you call it a reset, call it a business meeting, call it an informal drink of glass of wine or Diet Coke, whatever you want, and just have that intentional get on the same page. It makes me feel heard. It makes him feel heard. Same thing with my children, though. I do the exact same thing. I'm like, okay, you're going to play soccer this weekend. Like, let's talk about it. Let's walk through what your uniform is. And of course, most importantly is snack time. Let's walk through the snack time piece. That's all my daughter cares about. Are they going to have good snacks? And so anyways, I think that's a big piece of the time management. And then there's myself. I try to put myself first, but talking about it lastly in this conversation is, what does my day look like? So how do I start my day to do my accomplishment of what my day job is, my responsibility, which is extremely important for me to be successful and to do what I'm supposed to on my team. And then, but also how do I switch to mom life or wife life or dog owner life or friend or daughter or whatever that may be. And it's intentional. And like, I'll have multiple roundtable resets with myself on a daily basis. If I'm looking at my phone and like trying to, I know your paper calendar, you've got a paper calendar. Yes, everything. I love it. But anyways, I think that's a big factor for me, and it helps. And one other thing is, I think when our kids get a little bit older, when they can actually all read, I think I'm going to set something up in our house that's more like a communication board. So if it's a bulletin board or sticky notes or whatever's fun, but for me, and I know you're the same way, is like visual means everything to me. So like if I write it down and put it up, I think it's fun. I think literally removing or scratching off something from my to-do list I feel so much success. Like it's like a weight lifted off my chest. And so I think that's definitely coming in the next couple of years of just something to stay a little bit more organized, centralized with my family. But in an odd way, I'm doing something with my family. Like every little moment counts. And if it's a communication board, writing on a sticky note, like that's something I'm sharing intentionally with my kids or my husband or whoever else.
So biggest takeaways from that. So when we're talking about work-life balance, having proper time management is essential. It's one of the essential pieces. Being intentional with how you block out your time is a big part of it, right? So having those boards, having those written calendars, I do written and Google, right? Having your tools to properly block out your time leads to proper time management. But I think the layer you took deeper there was that communication with everyone involved. So having that 5-minute roundtable with your partners at home and your partners at work, so everyone's on the same page. That's something that can allow you to have work-life balance, because if you communicate to your work, hey, other than these 2 days while I'm on this trip, I will be unreachable, you've now achieved work-life balance, right? You've specifically separated work and life. If you have a team of employees, if you have, for example, my husband, some days he's off work when I'm on work and I might be working from the home office. A boundary that I have to set is I'm working during these times. Please don't come in and start changing your shirt behind my Zoom call. True stories, ladies and gentlemen. So setting those boundaries is a part of it. And that leads us into the next key factor, right? So with work-life balance, having boundaries is crucial. Setting and holding boundaries, establishing clear boundaries is key. So when it comes to setting boundaries, this is something that I will admittedly say that I have not been good at, right? My work life, my kid life, even before I had kids, I would tell you I didn't have very good boundaries with work. And it's Terry Blachek, you probably love me for it, right? I work 7 days a week. It's no problem. But to have proper work-life balance, which essentially should lead to better mental health for all of us, we do need to have healthy boundaries in place, and we do need to hold those, right? So I think it was about 6 months ago at Kid Strong that I came to Jana and I said, I'm actually exhausted. I'm not somebody who reaches burnout very easily. I'm a pretty, I'm one of those type A go-getters, always positive though. And I was like, I'm feeling really burnt out. I'm working 7 days a week. It feels like there's no off button. And Jana presented to me the concept that it's okay to drop balls, right? And that was, I was like, I don't want to drop any balls. I need to hit all the goals. I need to grow. I need to add more kids to every center. I need every employee to feel like they're absolutely supported. Oh, by the way, I need all 3 of my kids to feel absolutely supported, get everything they want, and my husband to be happy with me as a wife because I'm the best and I need to know that I am the best, right? And she was like, no, you're going to have to drop some balls. And, she used corporate world that like here in the corporate world, balls get dropped. You prioritize, you pick what's important. And that allowed me to begin to set boundaries and hold them. That allowed me to, make a statement to the team that like, hey guys, technically at 6 o'clock, I am off. So if it's not an emergency, let's define emergency. Don't call me after 6. Save it till the next day when you get in. And that boundary changed so much for me. So that's what we need to do with boundaries, right? We need to take a look at our lives and say, where should we have boundaries, or where have we even set boundaries, but then gone back on them? Because I'll tell you, it was hard for me, and it took about a week not to pick up the phone because it did ring, because I had to train the people in my life to respect the boundaries, right? And I could have easily fallen back into the habit and let those boundaries go.
And I think one way to look at it is to you have glass balls and plastic balls.
There you go. So let's talk about prioritizing, because prioritizing is the third thing you have to achieve work-life balance.
Yep. And I think that's how, and that was one way that I explained it, or at least that's how my mind works, is if you have a glass ball, those are the ones you obviously have to very much so pay attention to, prioritize the best you can. But also every day of prioritizing and checking everything off and making everyone happy, it's just not achievable every single day of your life. And that's why I said that's the part that is fluid, and it is, I'm trying to be self-taught in that manner. I am not great at it. Some days I'm living the dream. I'm on top of the hill. Everyone's happy, at least that I know. My middle child, who is a middle child, if you know what I mean, she's talking to me. And then some days she's not talking to me because something was wrong that I had no control over. And so anyways, she has taught me, I guess, more than anything, to just be fluid and kind of go with it. And every day is not going to be great. But back to those like glass and plastic balls, you have to do that or at least for myself, for every pocket or block in my life. So my corporate world, obviously with deadlines, I can't make up my own rules. I'm a, global company of 30,000+ employees. So I go by the rules. So those are my glass balls, but there are glass balls in my personal life too. Like, for example, we talked about it a week ago. I was not going to miss my daughter's birthday, like to be wholly there all day. And I was like, I'm out, Kid Strong. I'm already off from my other job. I'm not going to even look at Kid Strong, think Kid Strong all day long. I'm just going to like celebrate my daughter. And I was able to do it, but I set a strong boundary, which of course you have to have supportive partners all around, but it just works. But it did not feel, I guess, weird for you to hear that from me, because you knew that I was going to set that boundary. Like clearly we love our kids endlessly and all the funny stories that come along with them. And we know that about our children. We know that on our children's birthdays, for example, like that's their day to the best of our ability. Yeah. And I think that's one of those glass balls. And another thing I shared with you is I was like, the balls get dropped all the time, and the world still spins, and the company, for this example, still opens up tomorrow. So if you're missing a phone call from a staff at 6:30 at night, as long as something's not on fire and there's not a lot of blood or a lot of water or something like that, like it's going to open up the next morning. And that's what corporate world taught me. So I'm extremely thankful. Same for you. Before I had children, I had no boundaries. I was working a global role. I was up at 3 a.m. talking to some oil and gas guys in Africa. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I felt successful. But now fast forward with children, it's like my definition of successful is so different. Like I need to be up at 7, 8. I need to be fully focused at 7 a.m. when I know my daughter's going to walk around the corner and yell, boo, because she thinks she scares me, but I can't hear her door shut or see her on the camera. Anyways, that's a whole nother thing. But like, that's where it's like, that's a ball that I'm not willing to drop, every morning. And so I just make it intentional. And like you said, it takes time and repetitiveness to set that boundary.
And you've defined your priorities there, right? So you really do have to identify and realize what you're focusing on in both personal life and work life that takes priority, that is most important to you. And then self-care comes into play. So, this one is tough, right? It's tough for a lot of women. Taking time for activities that promote well-being. So this can be exercise, it can be a hobby. And what I want to do on this one, guys, because it's exercise, it's hobbies, it's relaxation. And I think when a lot of us hear self-care, we can go to a kind of an extreme place like, oh, well, I can't afford to go have a spa day right now, right? When the reality is that, for me, one of the things that I do for self-care is prioritize those blocks of time with my kids, right? So Gianna, for you, what would you give the woman watching as a tip? Like, how do you find time or make time to have self-care be part of the equation? So to prevent workout and live this balance.
So for me, it's a little different. Like self-care may look a little different every single day, truly. And again, it's one of those things of like, how do I measure being successful? So one day, a 60-minute Orange Theory workout may be my measurement of success, but it may not work for every day that week. For me, sometimes it's a 20-minute walk, or heck, we're in Texas. It's sometimes way too hot for that. So maybe it's like sit on my back porch, not have any phones, anything whatsoever, no kids, no nothing. And it's like 10 or 15 minutes of looking at the trees. Like it's just something to reset my brain or my mindset and any anxiety that I may be feeling from missing a deadline, hitting a deadline, kind of any and everything. So for me, it's truly, it's a little different every day. I think we talked about this, but like, it's one of those memes that says, how can I be, it's mainly like a frantic woman or animal that they use a picture of, but it's like, how can I drink my water, keep my kids alive, make sure I exercise, answer every text that someone sent me, stay sane with a smile on my face, and drop the kids off at school. And it's like all of that. And it's like, it's funny in its own right, but I don't want to be that person. And I've never not wanted to be that person so badly until the past couple of years. And again, it's what my kids see. For me, that's my goal. And so it's what my kids see is I don't want them seeing frantic, just not a happy person. When I am a happy person, I also want to appear a happy person. I kind of want to appear like a sane person too. Like that's kind of great. People take you a little bit more serious when you actually look like you have your life together at least. And so I think that's big for me. It's any sort of reset moment that I can find and make sure that I appreciate that.
So that's the key. So with self-care, you have to take a step back and decide what falls under that bucket. Make a list so that you don't sit back and tell yourself the story, I'm not getting any self-care, right? Because it can be a walk, it can be time with your kids, it can be something simple. And then so last, and this might be one that you got to have flexibility. You got to have flexibility in your life to achieve work-life balance. You need to be able to adapt your work schedule, right? And routines to accommodate personal needs. There's a lot of surveys out there on this kind of stuff, but one that I found was talking about like 85% of people are choosing their job and choosing their career based on flexibility, right? Based on if the employer is going to be okay with them shifting their work and, being gone for 2 hours for their kid's doctor's appointment and then making it up on their regular day off, right? The different flexibilities like that. And so as an employer, what I would tell you guys is, if you are an employer, number one, know this, right? Know that in order for people to be happy, they need some resemblance of flexibility in their life and empathy when these personal things come up. But up front, as an employer, you should be defining how that flexibility works. Meaning, as an employer, what accommodations are you willing to make? How do you need that communicated to you? Right? And when you're hiring and interviewing somebody, you need to be finding out what accommodations might this person need, right? And there are laws around what kinds of questions you can ask. I can't ask how old you are. I can't really get into how many kids you have. Like if you bring it up though, we can talk about it. I can ask you questions like, how does this schedule work for you and your lifestyle? And if you bring up your kids and situations going on with that, I can listen and I can be observant to the fact that if you have 3 kids, you're probably going to have to flex schedules here and there. And I can upfront say, hey, well, I want to talk about what happens when we have an employee here who has a situation come up with their child. We want to be flexible. And, luckily at Kid Strong, our thing is we want to be flexible. And as long as the center is covered, get some coverage for yourself, you can make up the hours on a different day. I think that's pretty fair as a leader. But you as an employer also might not have the ability to do that. There might not be somebody to cover their role. So it's important that you communicate that up front. It's like, hey, if your kid ends up getting sick, you're going to bring them back to the office with you. Or hey, if your kid ends up getting sick, do you have a backup childcare option if you just can't give that at all? So I do put the burden on the employer in this case equally to the employee, because as an employee, you need to state up front what you need in the form of flexibility. And if you accept a job, you kind of have to be willing to deal with the hand that you were dealt, right? So ask those types of questions. Ask what's going to happen. If my daughter has a field trip and I want to go on that, can I flex my time to another day? Ask how those things will work, because ultimately, if you're going to achieve work-life balance, you're going to have that flexibility to some degree that makes you happy, right? If it doesn't exist, you got to be happy living with that. So work-life balance, separation, you're managing your time, setting clear boundaries, prioritizing, and looking for flexibility, all with the concept that there is this distinctive separation, that I have my downtime, my me time, my personal time, and I have my work time completely separate. Work-life integration, on the other hand, is that flow and that equilibrium where things are just kind of meshing together and they can have this overlap. And when we're looking to achieve that, there's some overlapping factors that we are going to take into consideration. But there's also some big differences that we want to look at right now. So the 5 factors that we're going to hit on to achieve work-life integration, where there is this, flow through from work and personal life. The first one is evaluate your needs. You really do need to identify what is important to you, both at work and in your personal life. So that's kind of overlapping to a lot of the tips you've given us.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing to highlight is it's going to be situational for each person. So, and I feel like I have 2 extremes, which I'm thankful for. So I've got to learn from both ends of the spectrum. But like I have, let's call it stable, large corporate mindset. And then I also have small business mindset, and not only from just an employee, because I know we feel like we're our own employee, we're employees sometimes too of our own business by all means, but as an employer of a small business, it changes a little bit. Like one thing about just having that flexibility piece that we just spoke on, I've learned, and I think you have too, that what matters to people, I didn't necessarily know getting into it. And I think that's one thing to hone in on if you're wanting to own your own business or wanting to start anything and have anyone more than just yourself running it or working in it, is like what matters to them. Because we've learned it's almost different with every single one of our staffs. At every single one of our centers, there's no 2 coaches alike, which is great. Again, it's taught us that it's a huge diverse situational experience. But I think that's one thing to keep in mind is go in knowing that, get to know that person, care about that person. And that's how you can also achieve success and making them happy, is doing something along those lines.
So on that note, you have got to champion your own flexibility. So champion your flexibility at work. We just hit on that when we were talking about work-life balance, but you are responsible for advocating for the work arrangements that you want. Right? If you accept a job that isn't willing to accommodate requests like remote work or flexible hours, you have to kind of know what you've gotten yourself into and advocate before you get hired, ideally. If you find yourself in a new life phase, heaven forbid, something changes in your life, somebody gets sick, and you need to change that, you do need to go to your employer and advocate and speak up, and don't allow yourself to just burn out and fizzle out and become poor at your job because you're miserable. Speak up before it gets to that point. Third, you need to set those clear boundaries, right? So there's complete overlap. Establish boundaries between work and personal life to avoid burnout. So whether you're allowing things to flow into each other or not, kind of like Jana's story about going on spring break and allocating these specific days and times that she was going to do certain work-related activities versus very specific day that she was going to just do birthday stuff for her daughter. So reiterating how important those boundaries are. And then here's the thing that was interesting for me. Take breaks from work. In order to really achieve work-life integration, because you are having this flow through, right? And you are, Jana, you're having this extreme flow through. I'm having this extreme flow through. Our kids are going with us to Kid Strong. Like our life is very integrated, our personal and work. So one of the key factors to not lead to burnout is scheduling time where you really aren't going to have to work. You've been really good at that. You've definitely inspired me, right? Year, for the first time, I took a trip for my birthday. First time in my life, I think. And I was off, right? And it felt great. And I'm not somebody who has to run from my job. I love my job. I love the kids. I love the coaches. I love the people that we help. But taking and having time scheduled out to completely check out absolutely revved me up. And I think that that's something that we have to think about probably quarterly, right? Is get something on the books so that you have something to look forward to, even if it's just a weekend where you're going to completely say, I'm only the person, me with my family or what have you. I think that's going to be key. So just to recap, we hit on work-life balance. We talked about work-life integrations and the flow through on that side. Jana, what would you kind of leave everyone with in terms of, where the value in both of those lie?
I would say for me, I had to acknowledge the value of it first, like wholeheartedly. And I think it's one thing where, and we were the same way in different worlds, but I didn't need a break. Why would I need a break? I love my job. I'm good at my job. I'm getting raises when I'm supposed to. I'm making this person happy. I'm making everyone happy. And then over the past couple of years, there may have been some moments where I was forced to stop what I'm doing to, take care of something else, or intentionally taking a break or taking a day off or a weekend or a week off. And you don't know how well that serves you until you're probably back out of it, or at least for me. So I don't even know, like in the moment, that it's serving such a great purpose. It's not only doing my heart, soul, mind, body good, but it's likely doing those immediately around me, at the very least. It's doing just as much service to them too. And so I think that's one thing of like, you can think you're the greatest person ever. I mean, we both are in that mindset. Like we're good at what we do. We try really hard. We want to keep trying. You can always do more. Everyone can always do more. But there's some point where it's like we read an article years ago on LinkedIn, and it was something along the lines of, once a person gets over 50 hours a week, they are a certain percentage less productive. And once they get over 55 hours a week, they are another even worse percentage less productive. And that really stuck with me, not necessarily the 50 hours or the 55 hours to be exact, but at some point, I don't care who you are less productive if you don't stop what you're doing and reset, recharge, refuel, take a nap, whatever that may look like to you. And so I think that's where it hit home is I do have all these goals for my life. I have, small goals, medium goals, and these big stretch goals for myself, for my kids, for my family, for the world. I have it for everybody, but there's a point where I can only achieve so much by doing what I'm doing. And I'm doing a disservice to myself, and I'm not going to get those goals for everyone if I don't just stop what I'm doing.
So that's the mompreneur mindset takeaway is both of these are really great methods, right, of achieving happiness in your life, right? For the most part, we're working, we're living, we're having kids, we're trying to exercise and fit all the things in. So between the, 5 necessities for work-life balance and the 5 necessities for work-life integration, what would be a great exercise for everyone, and the worksheet that we're going to send out with this is we want you to this week to just identify one area. You got 10 to choose from, right? So just pick one area. Maybe for you, it's time management and focusing on productivity versus the hours, right? Maybe for you, it's boundaries. And you're going to write down on this worksheet a list of ways that you could do that, right? And the worksheet will walk you through that. Because it's not about doing all of these things all the time, right? The mompreneur mindset is pick something, get a little bit better, celebrate those wins, right? And celebrate them with us. We'd love to hear, how that works for you guys. And if you feel you're getting to a better place of, balance and happiness.
Just get started. Pick one. It doesn't have to be big and bold. It doesn't have to be a huge movement, but the repetitiveness of it will change the lifestyle of it. So don't just try to do like a quick fad diet or a quick fad. Oh, I'm going to change this week. It won't work. Like, trust us. That's a lesson I learned, like to do it. Oh, I'm going to do it this month, but not this month, or this, it just doesn't work. Like, you have to intentionally filter or factor these components in that we've discussed in your own situation, in your own whatever your own explanation of that may look like and make that work for you.
So we are excited for our next couple of episodes. We're going to be diving into some topics about, growth and goals, along with some topics about why would you want to go into franchise business, right? That's something that we get asked very often. So we're really excited to see you guys on the next episodes.